Okay, great. So we have a few minutes before lunch, and I wanted to ask you before we start, what is that picture of? Does anybody know? Yeah? It's Velcro, exactly. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Actually, more importantly, we're going to be talking about how to make money in digital media, which is probably a good thing to talk about here, right? And it's about connecting the dots. It's about connecting two things to make incremental value, and that's the math formula we have there, right? We're going to be talking about 1 + 1 equals an incremental 3. And that makes money, as opposed to linear deep dives into one particular media vertical. So, this way. So, no? Good. So we're going to be talking about the biggest problem we face here as agencies, as brands, is that the consumer screen is, over the last few years, has turned its face away from you as brands, right? It's turned its face in on the consumer, right? And so as people turn the phone on themselves to do selfies, how do brands, how do retailers, how do agencies find a way of becoming part of that picture? And if you can't find a way of connecting with that picture, then you cannot develop an engagement strategy. And if you can't develop an engagement strategy, you can't develop a conversion strategy, and you're stuck with CPMs. So let's talk about this picture. You've probably seen it, the inauguration dance, lovely picture. But the real story is here, right? And this is very similar from the picture we saw before of Francis and Benedictine's papal scene, is that people are seeing content not through their eyes, but through their screens. And more importantly, their friends in their circle of trust are seeing that content through that person's screen. And so we talked about how there's a proliferation of video uploaded to YouTube, that the last 2 years, video content has been created that is 90% of all video content created historically, and most of that has been created on small screen phones. And 25% of it is viewed on small screen phones. And so we look at this and we go, wow, how as brands and retailers do we become part of this conversation? And we look at the phone and we say, well, we have to conquer this phone then. We have to understand how to leverage that phone. And the biggest problem I think we face is that phone there, that phone, and compared to, and you probably heard this before, compared to the computer that they sent the first rocket to the moon, is faster. How much faster? 10 times faster? How much faster? Come on, I don't have too much time before lunch. I got to get some slides through. 100 times, that's really fast. And that would be an incredible opportunity, right? 100 times the speed in your pocket, right? But it's actually 3,000 times faster. And that's the biggest problem, because you guys look at this and you say, oh my gosh, there's a supercomputer in every consumer's pocket, in every shopper's pocket. So you say, wow, I have to develop some super application. I have to develop some super computing power solution to intersect with that consumer. And that's the biggest problem, because really, this phone and this phone, right? This is actually a $12 phone. It's not a Nokia, it's a fake Nokia. $12 phone is really the same, in as much as it's a communication device. It connects a consumer with their circle of friends, and it enables you to connect to that consumer. And so these are all mobile devices, right? You have the Note, a little bit bigger. You have the Kindle, not really a mobile device, but you can kind of stuff it into your jacket pocket and move around with it. And this guy, not really a mobile device, but portable, right? This definitely more a Starbucks device, but it's a connected device. And all of these devices are connected, and that makes them part of the same family. And really, I start my discussions usually with the following statement: mobile is dead. And it's really quiet in the room, right? But mobile is dead, long live mobile. Because mobile was invented as a word to describe things that weren't mobile. Really, that's a contrived notion, because it was invented to describe things that weren't online. Well, online pretty much is dead in most parts of the world. And really, what we are navigating towards is a connected economy, where all devices are connected. And really, it just comes down to the DNA and form factor of those screens, how they're used and how we intersect them as brands. So this is not a mobile device, but it's a connected device. You can get internet on it, and hey, it kind of looks like a big tablet. You can point at it with your finger and move it around. It has things on it that look a whole lot like apps that, if Samsung had its way, would be contiguous right across all those screens. This is a mobile device. That's a mobile device. The difference is those are all personal devices, and that's a public screen. But it's all connected. And in order to understand how you as brands can create value, you have to find out how to engage with the screen narrative. You have to understand where your consumer is across those screens in order to monetize it. So we know that they spend a whole bunch of time in front of those screens. And the last conversation was, hey, look, 43 minutes of my day on the TV screen. Hey, should we spend some money on TV? Or should we spend some money on those devices that have 17 minutes of my attention every day? Well, the reality is that while I'm watching this BGV screen in my home, this entertainment device, really I'm making peanut butter sandwiches and I'm on my tablet and I'm talking to my wife, right? And when I'm on that screen over there for the 17 minutes, I'm nose to screen. I'm nose to nanoseconds of my day, full attention. So how do we spend our money? We need to spend our money across all the screens and understand how they connect. It's not one or the other. So the multi-screen day, we know that prime time has changed, and every screen has its own prime time, right? And we have to know where the prime time is of a specific screen, of a specific consumer across their day, whether it be on, on a handheld, on the tablet or the PC. And the reason we need to do that is because, according to Google and according to a lot of other research studies, 90% of your consumers are using multiple screens sequentially to accomplish one task over time. And more importantly, 98% move between the device the same day accomplishing that task, right? So it really comes down to this. How I say, it's not about the screen anymore. It's not about content. Content is important, but it's really the space between the screens that we have to focus on. Because in order to monetize that content, in order to create incremental value on that content, we have to work out how to connect the screens. So the space between the screens is just as valuable as the screen real estate itself. And I call that digital Velcro, right? Right? And so this guy knows a thing or two about screens, right? Actually, it's probably more this guy who designed the iPod, right? Vine, or Sir Vine. So what was so, and this is really what we're going to take away from this presentation, what was so amazing about this, why was the iPod successful? It was because they did all the difficult stuff on this screen, and they allowed you to do all the simple stuff on this screen. And if you go back in time and you look at the other devices on the market, they try to do everything on the small screen. So if you as a brand understand what a screen is used for, and you adapt your content for that screen, you will create a narrative which is 1 + 1 = an incremental 3. And they did that with Apple. This was the device that brought Apple back, right? It was on life support at this point, right? So brands, retailers, content owners who can't connect the screens have a hard time. These guys are disintermediating screens, right? The Amazons of the world. They're disintermediating it for retailers, they're disintermediating it for publishers, and the guys that cannot connect the screens fluidly are out of business. Best Buy in the US is pretty much big box out of business, right? They're on life support. The only reason they can support their rent is because Samsung did a store in a store, right? Barnes & Noble, also, if you go to Barnes & Noble, entertainment paradise. But nobody's taking a Barnes & Noble bag out of there. They're browsing, entertaining. And the problem is that malls, although you are a mall culture here, malls in the US are suffering. And the reason is that there are entertainment centers, right? And retail is an entertainment content, it's an entertainment destination. I go into Best Buy, I go into Barnes & Noble to entertain myself. If the mall is now just Starbucks and a movie theater, the mall has to get people to pay an entrance fee in order to sustain its operations, which ain't gonna work, right? So we have to work out how to get into a relationship with this multi-screen consumer, how to get that screen that they've turned in on themselves to include us. And the only way you can do that, have you seen Meet the Fockers? The movie? Remember, he wakes up in the morning and he has that piece of paper on his chest, and it's circle of trust, and you're over there. Well, that's where you guys are. You're not in the circle of trust. You are not on the small screen. Yeah, you can buy a few CPMs, but you are totally ignored. You can buy some Facebook sort of sponsored ads. You are totally ignored. And how do you become relevant again? And the guys who think that they are relevant, this is probably their big data strategy, right? So, stores are saying the four walls of the store become porous. And the reality is those neat lines that we drew have gone. We don't have stores anymore. We don't have cloud. Cloud was neat and polite. It lived in the home, in our living room, on the online, and the stores, they lived in the malls. The reality is all those lines are breaking down. And now suddenly, hey, it's about bridges, not islands, as a great speaker once said, right? So, each screen has personality, right? You have your TV screen, which is your big entertainer, right? He's the entertainer here. You have your PC, which is the sage. This is sort of Microsoft language. I kind of like it. And the tablet's a wizard. I get on my couch. I can play games. I can be with my kid. I can show them stuff. There are no barriers, right? But I do all my reports and boring stuff on the Sage device. And then this is the lover. This is your most important screen. This is the screen you have to build upon. And so let's talk about the lover device, right? So we all have lover devices here, right? 33% of teenagers sleep with the phone under the pillow. 33% of adults sleep with the phone next to their bed. I believe that's a very low statistic. Probably people aren't very honest when it comes to polls about their bedroom habits. But the reality is it's a very important part of our day, and our consumers' day. And if you actually look at statistically, 55% would rather give up caffeine than their phone. 33% would rather give up sex than their phone. And just a little secret, it's probably the same 33% that sleep with it under their pillow, right? And it's because we don't understand that screen, that we focus on screens like this, right? You have to know your screen. So who watches this, right? In the US, the average age of a linear network subscriber is 55 years old, right? This screen is on the golf course, right? It's on its way out. How do we become relevant to a new content consumer? You look at screens like this, you think it's a mobile device, right? They say this is a mobile device. Tell me about this. Tell me about how the way Apple sees this device being used. I'm going to give you a telltale hint. Every single commercial for a tablet has what? Feet up in the air. What does that tell you about mobility? It means this was designed as a sofa device. And the only mobility that was really built into this was to get you from the sofa to the kitchen and the kitchen to the sofa. Yes, you see it here and you see it in Starbucks, but ultimately, it's a home utility, right? It's used for this, right? This is two-fisted couch commerce. To be honest, I divide connected devices into two things. Two-fisted devices and one-fisted devices. That's all it is. They're all connected. A one-fisted device is something I can carry into the store and I can actually multitask and not run into the end cap. A two-fisted device, as soon as I take it out, I'm immobile. I have to sit on a couch or I sit on a chair, otherwise I'm in big trouble, right? So this is thoughtful, immersive commerce. This is one-fisted impulse commerce, right? Totally different experiences. If you don't design for this experience, either from a commerce perspective or a media perspective, right? Then you're not engaging your consumer intelligently and your ad dollars are absolutely going to waste, right? You have to work out how I can intersect from a public screen to a personal screen. If I can't connect the Velcro between a public screen and a personal screen, I'm out of business. And I don't consider a digital screen a public screen. It could be paper or plastic because I have a mobile mouse. right? I have a mobile mouse, right? And I can use this to activate paper and plastic. I can use it to engage. I can use it to do intelligent, I've got your attention engagement. Look, mobile and their screens and understanding the consumer is very complex. It ends up in strange places, right? 75% of folk are active here, right? 13% of guys complete mobile purchases of products that you guys are trying to sell here. I don't know why there's no statistic for women, but let's just go with this. And so spontaneity and engaging a consumer across the screens is very important. Digital path to purchase is incredibly perilous, right? Path to purchase, what is path to purchase? Path to purchase is you buying media as a signpost. Hey, I have a great product, go in that direction, I'm in the mall. I have a great product, go online, I'm somewhere there. Where the mall and online are here now. And if I can't drive purchase as part of my path to purchase now, then I'm going to be disintermediated along that perilous journey, right? That's what I wrote about in my first book. So the brand challenge is that the shopper no longer follows you, no longer follows the store, no longer follows the brand, and the retailer needs to follow the shopper, or the brand needs to follow the shopper. And that's a new tool set. And in order to do that, you have to create new destinations that aren't in the store and aren't in the cloud, but actually a part of that consumer journey, right? And so it's called, I call it offline interactive, and it's really an untapped audience. And although it's hard to buy media there, that's where you spend most of your money. You spend most of your money on billboards between the home and the store. But you don't think of it as path to purchase or interactive. You think about it as broadcast. You think about it as passive. And that has to change. You need to connect your public screens, your public impressions with the personal screen. And so this is how media is allocated, right? You have your TV budget, God bless it, really heavy, hefty. And you have a mobile budget, which is almost zero, even though time spent on mobile is 23%. As opposed to 1%. But the reality is that I am not advocating that you spend more money on mobile. What I'm advocating is you see mobile as more of a horizontal to connect all your media touch points. So let's take this budget and shove it across to things like print, right? Let's think about how mobile can be an activation agent to create incremental value to your other spends. Right? So that 1 + 1 = 3. If I add this to my print budget, still keep my money in the print budget, hey, digital's cheap, cost effective we call it, right? But if you take it and you add it to an incumbent media, it creates an incremental lift, right? And it's stuff like this that I think is the future. Stores in the cloud need to come down into the mall and create physical stores. This is not digital out of home where I'm buying an impression. I'm actually opening up a store. It just doesn't have inventory here, and it doesn't have somebody you have to pay here, but it curates, it clienteles my relationship into the cloud. And then I can buy stuff and make money. Thank you.